I'm gonna start the recording now.
All right. Hi, I'm Evan.
Hi, I'm Jordyn.
I'm Han.
Hi, I'm Khouloud.
I'm Hudson. Today we are going to be discussing a book called Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand, published in 2014. It's about an Olympian named Louis who fought in World War II as a bombardier and became a prisoner of war. Let's start with the questions. Evan, what changes in the setting between Ofuna and Naitsu?
Ofuna is a prison camp just outside of Tokyo, and it is on a man-made island where the weather is cool, but not freezing cold. Whereas Naitsu is a small village in northern Japan where there is a lot of snow and it is extremely cold. Han, what is Louis' connection to the bird after the war ends?
Louis and Bird's connection after the war is more like Louis proving that he's never be beaten by the birds. Clue how Louis is a hero.
I personally think that Louis is a hero because he was the first guy who nearly breaks the 4-minute mile challenge, gets caught up in World War II. He was also, his plane also crashed into the Pacific Ocean, punched sharks in the face, survives multiple POW camps, lives, returns home, marries, and discovers God throughout it all. Jordyn, let me find your question here. What factors caused the guards to treat the POWs like they did?
I think it mainly because of their war culture and the Japanese culture. If you were taken to a prisoner of war camp, it's dishonor in your name. So you'd want to die before you got taken as a prisoner. I also think it's a way to show power over the Americans and show that they are dominant and that they will win the war when they don't. Hudson, what information is given to us through the omniscient narrator?
Well, by having an omniscient narrator, we get lots of insight into how Louis is feeling, which I would say is enhanced by the lack of dialogue, meaning that there's more room for internal monologue and more in-depth descriptions into what Louis is thinking and stuff like that. We also hear about other characters like Louis's feelings when Louis is gone overseas and when he's a prisoner of war and declared dead. And we also get to hear about Phil's mental struggles when he returns home. Let's start with the level 3 questions. I'll start with mine. Make a connection to Louis' story through a song or a poem.
I would connect Louis' story to the song Stronger by Kelly Clarkson, because as the lyrics say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, which I believe really relates to Louis' story and how all the troubles and struggles that he went through throughout the book really led to the person he became at the end of the book.
I chose Long Hard Road by Tyler Childers because in the song, he talks about how his life is perceived to be this long road. And I feel from Louis' perspective, he would really feel like his life is that long, hard road that is depicted in the song.
I choose the song Find Me, and because Louis found his God and found his life he wanted.
And I chose the song Miracles because of how many things he went through and how he survived. And the song basically talks about war and just basically really similar to the story. Yeah.
Yeah, so the connection I made was through the song called Train in Vain by The Clash. The song talks about feelings of being lost. And I think that ties nicely into Louis' story, which, because he's lost for most of the book as well.
All right. What experience or characteristic do you guys believe you share with Louis?
I wrote down his resilience because, especially lately, between work and school, I've had to do long hours and wake up early. So, although my body is tired and I am mentally tired, I keep pushing through it and I keep trying to channel that resilience to maintain kind of my day-to-day life.
I think I have the good shape and skills like Louis.
I'm currently just like Jordyn, but I always say just what Louis said. Always look on the bright side and be hopeful.
For me, the connection I made was that me and Louis were both very rebellious as kids. We share that. I didn't steal or run from the cops as like he did, but I did get into a lot of fights and I wouldn't listen to anyone.
So to answer my own question, the characteristic I think I share with Louis is that I believe I'm hardworking, as it is clearly shown with Louis that he is hardworking. Um, I've been working hard at whatever I do with school, work, anything really that's been going on in my life, even if it's hard. Obviously, none of that is nearly as hard as the experiences Louis has been going through, but I think it's still a characteristic that we seem to share.
All right. What lesson did you learn from Louis?
I have learned how to control my anger.
And I have learned how to control my anger too and refuse to let others steal my joy.
For me, I think there's a lot to learn from Louis, but I believe the most important thing for me is to just keep going. Horrible things keep happening to Louis over and over again, and I think it's very admirable that he pushes through and keeps going. And I also think that's very applicable to my life.
Life lesson that I learned from Louis is that sometimes things do get worse before they get better. Throughout the book, it seems like every time something's happening to Louis, it's just making his life worse and worse. But at the end, we find out that he ends up having a great life there at the end. So eventually things will get better, I guess, is the lesson to be learned there.
All right. I said to make the best of your situation, even though times might be tough, you need to remember to keep living your life and trying to make the fullest of it, or else you'll just go into sink into like a depressions type state. And when you look back on that, you'll feel even worse than when you felt during that.
Okay, so if someone liked this book, what other book, movie, or TV show would you recommend to them?
That'd be me.
Yes.
I would recommend the movie called Jarhead. It was published in 2005. It's a movie really similar to the book. It's about war and full of actions.
Yeah, so I would probably recommend the book Boys, Bombs, and Brussels Sprouts, because it's a really good book and it's a World War II memoir, which is sort of like Louis' story in that it's about World War II. It takes place in that time, and the person telling the story in Boys, Bombs, and Brussels Sprouts is also a pilot. He flew in bomb raids, and I think it's very interesting to contrast the two stories.
Similarly to Hudson, I also picked a movie or book from World War II. It's The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, which is about a young boy who is a prisoner in a German camp during the Holocaust. I think it's a good comparison to Louis' story because it shows an example of the harsh treatment of Jewish people in the camps in Germany, similarly to the prisoners of war in Japan.
I would recommend the movie The Siege of Judoville. It was kind of based more in the Cold War era, but the main character we see goes into Africa, into kind of their UN camp, and he gets abandoned there because the UN isn't sending any more resources for them to continue out fighting. And we see kind of the more mental sides of like what it impacts you to be left by your own country.
I would recommend the movie Forrest Gump. It depict the inspirational story of Forrest Gump, a small town boy with congenital mental retardation.
I'm assuming my turn again.
Yes.
Would you recommend this book to the ELA 20 class? Yeah, why or why not? I would for sure recommend this book to the ELA 20 class because of the story of hope and how not to give up, survive, and the human will not to live no matter is thrown your way. Louis never gave up, and he was never gave up when he and Phil were afloat on a raft in the South Pacific Ocean. So I for sure recommend it. A great story and full of joy. Not joy, but like it was it was interesting.
Yeah, for me, I would say yes, I recommend it. It held my attention much easier than any other ELA books I've read, like Macbeth or Doubt. I also think that there's a lot to learn from the book. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this to other ELA classes.
Yeah, I would also recommend this to future ELA classes because it was a good book that was able to keep the attention of, I would say, most people probably. And it does have a lot of really good life lessons to be learned, and it's got a good meaning behind it.
I'd also have to agree saying yes, I would recommend this book. I found with reading the book and having history class at the same time, there was a lot of similarities, and I was able to put a point of view to what I was learning in my other class. I actually paid attention to this one because I found it interesting. But yeah.
Yes, I would recommend this book because it always expresses a spirit of not give up